Good evening and welcome to Strictly Speaking. My name is Joshua Reaves. I'm the director of University Theater here at NC State, and we want to welcome you all to our last Strictly Speaking of the season. Tonight, we've got a theater director, a filmmaker, an actor zooming all the way in from Barcelona, Spain, Andy Señor Jr. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hola, buenas noches.
What time is it there? What time is it there, Andy?
It is now 12:01 p.m.
Ooh, man. Well, thank you so much for staying up late with us or waking up early. I don't know, whatever floats your boat.
But this is usually you'll probably hear my cat soon meowing and saying, "What's up?" Let's go.
Yeah, so hey, that's okay because this is a very casual type of conversation. Just, anything goes, and we're just gonna get to know you as a person and the person behind, the role or the film or the show. To begin with, Andy, I'd love to ask this question of everybody. In your words, can you tell us what does it mean to be a professional actor and a professional filmmaker?
I think to be a professional actor and a professional filmmaker, it's adding the word professional, which means that it's right. It's a declaration. It is a declaration that you do this as a profession, that you have committed yourself to do this as a profession and to abide by that profession and with the finances and professionalism and the world that the word of the integrity that a profession entails. That's my answer.
Awesome.
You like that answer?
I loved it. I hope everyone else did. But you can let us know in the Q&A. So, hey, but before we added that professional tag to your roles, how did you get started? Where did it all begin?
Well, I'm originally from Miami. My parents are of Cuban descent. They left during the revolution in Cuba and then went to Miami. And in Miami, my uncles started this nightclub with Las Vegas style shows where a lot of the Cuban exile performers and stars would play. And my own parents started their own Latin orchestra, and they would play all around Miami, and they would do a lot of they started their band at the same time as Gloria and Emilio started Miami Sound Machine. And so I grew up in this whole world of Latin music and Latin entertainment, and backstage at a lot of these venues. So the entertainment business was one that basically I inherited. I started as a musician. I knew that I sang, but I was embarrassed to say that I was a singer because my family was around so many professional singers. Mm-hmm. So I went the musical theater route, and I found a way to really not only sing, but I found a community of people that felt like who I was, and that was in high school.
Okay.
And then I decided to I was a horrible student in high school, but the university that I went to, FIU, gave me a full ride and said, "Listen, we'll give you a scholarship if you get good grades." And I was like, "Okay." And so I kept my scholarship. Was a good student, and then I at the end of getting my BFA, I wanted to go get a master's. Mm-hmm. I wanted to take acting super seriously and go get my MFA. And I was auditioning for University of California, San Diego, UCSD. And at that time, the resident director of the La Jolla Playhouse, which is part of UCSD, was Michael Greif, the original director of Rent. And I auditioned. I did 2 monologues and then 2 other monologues. And then he asked me at the end of the audition, he's like, "Do you sing?" And Rent had just opened.
Oh.
And I said, "Like a bird," was my answer. And he's like, "Well, I want to see you." He's like, "I want to see you for Rent." So he's like, he gave me the casting director's number and said, listen, you need to call as soon as possible, and I want to see you for Rent. And then I found myself in New York shortly after auditioning for the role of Angel. And the following day after the audition, I got cast in the national tour, the LA company. And that took me on, through LA, the tour. It took me to London with the West End cast, and I did that for about a year and something. Then I went to Broadway for many years, and then the show has been tied to my life ever since. Do you want me to go into that a little bit?
Oh no, well, I actually, yeah, there's so much to get into. Yeah, no, that's great, Andy. But I do want to hit on a few things, because I mean, for me, Rent was the show for me. I mean, that was the show that got me into theater, like my first time hearing it. So it's great to like speak to you, Andy. I mean, like
did you ever see it?
Oh yes, oh yeah, I saw it in New York. Yeah, 90. 98, 99, maybe. Yeah.
So I came in New York. I was there starting 2000, early 2000.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was 98 or 99. Wow, that's great. I hate that. But hey, let's talk about that real quick though. About you said you were on the national tour, and then you went to you played on Broadway and West End. Can you tell us a bit about, is there a big difference between playing in Broadway versus London's West End? And if so, what are those differences?
Well, so I was on the national tour prior to London, and when I got to London, I saw that a lot of the humor, that like the laughs that I was used to getting in the States were not the laughs that I was getting in London. I was getting laughs in the strangest and odd other places. And even the cast didn't necessarily understand a lot of my things. Like, for example, the Seasons of Love soloist backstage was warming up, and I was like, girl, you better sing. And she was like, but I am singing. I was like, oh, okay. So there was a little bit of a learning curve in language. But it didn't do very well in London. I think that it was so New York. It was like, it was just not, it was a different time. I think if, now it would be a different story. But at that time, it's the audiences, the typical UK audiences weren't really into the show that much, interestingly enough.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a at least my experience with it was a New York story, a New York show. Yeah, really.
I mean, there were parts of the United States where, like, I'm kissing Collins at the end of I'll Cover You, and there's people like getting up and leaving. And in a lot of the places that we toured in the U.S. back in '97.
Now, did you have a favorite? Did you prefer playing in the same? Was it the Nederlander it played in, or?
I love the Nederlander.
Yeah.
I loved my time on Broadway. When I came into the Broadway show, I had Michael McElroy was my Collins, Norbert Leo Butts was Roger. It was just I had a crazy cast, and wow. I learned so much, and just being in New York City, being on Broadway, I was just, that was my dream, and to be there, being 25 years old and doing that was, for me, Cuban kid from Miami, that was just unheard of.
Wow. Well, awesome. Oh man, I can't believe I just missed you too. So now that's not the only experience though you've had with Rent. Like you said, it's been part of your life for a while. I saw that you had actually you moved into off the stage and took on some directing roles. Yes.
Yeah. So once we closed the Broadway company, they did a revival off Broadway, and Michael Greif asked me if I wanted to be his associate on that, and I did, and shortly after that, Tokyo bought the rights to do that same version, and Michael was like, "I'm not going to Tokyo, you're going." So that was my first time directing. Was in Japanese with a double cast, like 2 Rogers, 2 Mimis, 2 Joanne. And that was like intense. But I figured it out. And then after that, you know, I've done Korea, Cuba with the show. Yeah.
And for you personally, Andy, you know, bringing that show that meant so much to you to Havana, was that important for you? Was that like you know, how did that work? How did that feel?
It was actually very complicated. When they called me with the offer, I was like, yes, of course, this is amazing. But as I said, my parents were Cuban exiles, so they were a no about it. My mom was just like, you're crazy, absolutely not. No, 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 no. What is the community here gonna think? You know, like in Miami, you don't go to Cuba and you don't, you know, anything that you do with the Cuban government is like, that's communist and so forth. But you know, I had done the show all over the world. How am I not gonna bring the show to Cuba and work with Cuban artists? It was just like, I'm absolutely doing this, and it's, you know, I don't stand it. No, I had to do it. I had to go.
And working in Tokyo on the show, you know, how was the show received there, and was there any major logistics difference in producing theater in Japan?
Well, you know, it's interesting. The Japanese are huge fans of the show. They love Rent, and we put it up there every 2 years, and it's always sold out.
Okay.
It's fun. We put like J-pop and K-pop stars in the show, and it's a thing, and it's really fun. They always know that they're going to go into the Rent Andy experience, because it's, you know, the Japanese culture is so far away from what HIV, New York City, drag queen, like it's so far away, and it's a definite process to work with them and have them understand who these people are, and to embody the lives of these characters, and a lot of times teach them the art form. A lot of times they haven't done musicals before, so you have to teach them the art form, and it's like, okay, you got it, all right, now we're going to get into the character.
Gotcha. So can you kind of take us through what is a typical day for you, as a performer, or as a, you know, in directing, or as filmmaker, you know? And then let's talk about pre-COVID first. Like, what's a typical day? Like, how does that go?
Well, you know, my typical day is not very typical, because I worked for such a long time that I had the opportunity to move to Europe, and I was like, you know what? If I stay in New York City, I know what my typical day is going to be. I'm going to wake up, I'm going to have my breakfast, go to 42nd Street studio or some studio. I'm going to rehearse. I'm going to leave rehearsals, meet a friend, maybe see a show, or go home. And I kind of know how it's going to go in New York City. If I move to Europe, I have no idea what my life is going to be like. And for me, like, I put my life before my career, always. I've always done that, and it always pays me back tenfold. Because I have to be like, follow my curiosity, and that gives me my creativity, and then, you know, it's a whole domino effect. So like pre-COVID, I was working on a musical called Fly at the La Jolla Playhouse, actually. But like when I'm not working, I'm just like making a nice. I'm enjoying my life, like purposely. I'm making a nice breakfast, hanging out with my boyfriend, traveling. You know, maybe doing some Bikram yoga, and then doing some reading, just like filling the cup. What I say? What is it? Filling the
glass. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So because then when I go into production, then I'm like emptying the gas. So I make sure to like really take care of myself and enjoy my day. currently, what I'm doing is I go to this. It's called Bamboo Body. It's an Ido Portal method, which is like I spend 2 hours moving. And what that means is like learning how to do handstands or rolls on the floor, a certain kind of calisthenics and so forth. I'm 46 years old, and my body behaves very differently from when I was in my 20s, and it's really challenging. But I think it's for me it's crucial to be like getting out of what's comfortable for me, and always not being in my comfort zone and challenged. So I spend a lot of time doing that right now, and then working on, the part that they don't tell you about directing or producing or creating is that you're always having to answer emails.
Yeah.
And it makes me, and I just get tons of them and that's just not my thing. So it's like it's a real, I think that's the hardest part for me out of the whole entire thing, is the business of it. There's so much preparation and pre-pro and so forth, that there's more of that than actually being in the room, creating. And that part is for me is the most challenging part.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's the there's so much now you have to, and like we planned before, but like even now, even just to have a conversation, 2-minute conversation, it requires, setting up a meeting, as opposed to just walking down the hall. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Okay. So what about, in terms of like, your work now, how do you approach it differently in light of everything that's happened in the world over the last 13, 14 months?
I understand why you asked that.
Yeah.
And there's so much that's happening all over the world, particularly in the United States. There's a lot that's happening. And I have been thinking about that a lot. And what it is, thinking about what do I want to put out in the world? What is my, where do I take responsibility? How do I engage? What difference do I want to make? Asking myself all those questions. And if I'm going to be honest, it leads me down a path that doesn't necessarily inspire me. It leads me down a path where I'm trying to survive something, and it doesn't feel creative to me for myself. So what I'm doing is it's like taking in the information, understanding it, letting it sink into my body, and then following where my love goes. Just like following where my love goes, where my curiosity and where I'm in, what calls to me, and where I can express my love and where I can share my love, and that I've just seen over and over, at least with myself, it's like when my heart is 100% in something, that's the tipping point, that it tips it over. And I truly believe, like, if when I go through when I'm trying to be strategic, and there's just no heart in that. And it's for me, it's vacant.
It sounds like that.
I want to put love out in the world, and in its many forms.
Gotcha. Yeah, it sounds like that planning you're talking about.
It sounds so, I love and hippie and let's do hair. And I don't mean that. I don't mean that. And there's nothing wrong with hair. I love hair. But like my capital self expression out there in the world.
Cool. All right. Well, let's okay. I may know the answer to this, but I do ask this of most of our guests. What's been your most exciting or favorite project to date?
My favorite project to date, I think it might be, I love the documentary that I'm releasing right now for many reasons and for very, very personal reasons. But, I worked on Your Feet, the Gloria Estefan musical on Broadway. And I just loved since I grew up with Gloria and Emilio, and it was about my community, literally my neighborhood, and we're putting it on the Broadway stage. I remember, like, just before opening, I was sitting there with Gloria and Emilio, and we're watching this, you know, big musical number, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, this, look how far we, you know, we've come here. And that one, that was really moving for me, because it dealt with my I like to work on things that are very personal for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think On Your Feet may be one of my favorites, and then the documentary that I'll be releasing in June on HBO. That of course is like, that's like almost a memoir. And yeah, that's another favorite.
Yeah, and Andy, coming like to the extent that you can you tell us something or anything about the documentary?
Yeah, the press release came out today. Actually, today is the 25th anniversary of Rent. So happy anniversary. And it was released, the press release came out today on that HBO shared, that on June 15th, the documentary is called Revolution Rent. It'll screen at 9:00 p.m. HBO and HBO Max. Neil Patrick Harris is the executive producer, and basically the film is a memoir-style documentary. It's almost like I'm Mark, and it follows me putting up the show in Cuba and the many things that we come across in putting up the show. But it also deals a lot with my parents and them not wanting me to go, and how that whole personal story unfolds. And so yeah, it's gonna be on HBO.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I just threw that in the chat for everyone. It's variety.com did an article, so check it out.
Hi, Natalia. I'm glad that resonates with you.
Yeah, I was actually gonna, and that leads us into to Rich's question. So thank you, Natalia. Follow your curiosity and love. Rich asks, in what way does Barcelona feed your ability to follow your curiosity and being able to put love out there?
Well, you know, my grandparents are Spanish, and I grew up. Because of those nightclubs that my parents had when I was a kid, they were never home. So I was raised very much by my grandfather, and we shared the same room, and he was like total Spanish man, and he also cooked a lot. So one of the things that I follow right now, my own curiosity and love, is like today I made a paella, and just like particularly from a culinary place. I'm also working on, and this one I can't talk about.
Okay.
Not yet. I'm also working on a show based on a famous Spanish painter, and another Cuban painter that spent a lot of time here in Spain. So, you know, like I did in Cuba with Rent, I'm exploring my roots. I have a lot of family here, so you know, getting acquainted with and closer with family here. My boyfriend also lives here, so there's not more love and inspiration than that. Yeah, I just like I love spending time in Europe. To me, it's delicious.
Delicious. I love that. That's great.
Delicious.
All right. Well, hey, speaking of delicious, what is your dream role, or maybe a dream story that you've always wanted to play or tell?
Dream role or story to tell?
Yeah.
I don't know that right now, but I know that there's people that I want to work with. Can I tell you that?
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
I've been watching I've been watching a lot of Spanish TV, and if you don't watch Spanish series, it's incredible. Like there's like Casa de Papel. Have you seen House of, what is it in English? It's the House of
Money.
Casa de Papel, Money Heist.
Money Heist.
Have you seen it?
I have not seen it. Natalia, sounds like Natalia might have.
It's so good. And I mean, the Spanish TV series are are incredible. Well, there's one called Veneno, which is based on this transgender prostitute from the 80s that lived here in Spain, in Madrid. And these two guys called Los Javis, which are like, they're kind of like Almodovar-esque. They're these amazing creators. They're creating amazing work. I would love to work with these guys. That's I'm putting it out in the world. That's
the dream.
My
All
dream
right.
is to create a series with these guys.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully they'll tune into our recast of this on YouTube. All right. All right. So
I'm obsessed with La Casa de Papel and La Chicas del Cable. Yes, Chicas del Cable was great. If you like Chicas del Cable, you should definitely see Veneno on HBO, but also see I'm watching Locked Up. It's called Vis a Vis. With a lot of people from Casa de Papel and Chicas del Cable are on that. So yeah.
All right. And we got Deneen also loving some Spanish telenovelas and movies as well. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So all right. So you've performed, you've directed, you've worked with film. Do you prefer one of the three over the others? And if so, why?
I think the reason I'm gravitating so much towards film right now is because it's seemingly more intimate. That's what I tell myself. I don't know if it's that I'm more intimidated with expressing myself in a larger way that theater requires, in a more exposed. I think that with age, I've become a little more intimate and more. I don't know. Like I could being in a big theater and having to fill the theater. Just that there's something about that where when I was like way younger, I was like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't know, things have changed for me a little. But I also I like this. I like the subtleties of the camera and what the camera, and I like controlling it more. Like watch this specifically.
Gotcha.
Being able to frame and
shape and yeah. Okay. And do you find that in live performance, you put it out there, it's there. There's no taking it back right then and there. Whereas in film, you've got some editing, you got some, I can go back and look at it. Is that something that's in?
I love that.
Okay.
For my control freak self now, that makes me very happy.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. All right. We got another question here from Rich. Rich asks, filmmaking is a bit like being a mayor of a city. Food, waste, safety, locations, managing people. How do you handle stress of filmmaking?
Well, actually, in documentary, there's not much of that. It's actually especially the documentary that I made, we shot most of it with my iPhone and a camera. So it's very what do you call it?
Guerrilla. Yeah, guerrilla filming.
Very much.
Sure.
I haven't dealt with the things you're talking about, Rich, yet. I am intimidated by that, and I'm eager to learn what that is, and I can imagine it'll frustrate me a little bit. But it's kind of what I've liked about documentary is that there are no rules at all.
So if you could, let's take us all the way back to Rent when you were on Broadway. Tell us, you kind of gave us a little bit of an idea of what your typical day was, but what's the schedule like for a Broadway performer? Like, what are you doing in terms of the show, and how many hours are you there, and things like that?
It's there's only 3 hours of work. And people think that, it's only 3 hours of work. But the minute you wake up, you're immediately checking your voice. And then the psychological war begins in your head. Okay, and then you start thinking, okay, what do I have to eat, by when? Okay, what time is it? All right, I slept too much. I feel tired. I don't want to do the show. Yeah, I do want to do it. Just what mood are you in? Mm-hmm. You start planning your day from the moment you wake up, and thinking your way through. Maybe you're going to the gym or any of that kind of stuff, or just doing household chores, meeting with friends, doing that kind of thing. But from the most stressful part is knowing that you have to do the show no matter what that evening. And although, it is a massive privilege, by the 100th show, it just occurs to you in a very different way. I would normally get there about 45 minutes before the show. And the first half hour, I'm just kind of visiting people. And, I was being idiotic and playing around and hanging out. And then it's like, this is your 15-minute call. I was like, I gotta go get ready. And then you know what happens at 15 minutes? My friends and I were actually talking about this, and no one will probably ever say this
Oh,
out
please
loud,
tell us.
but I'm gonna say it here. At 15 minutes, most people are taking poops. That is really what's happening backstage, that most people are doing their 15-minute poop. That's the truth.
Good to know. Good to know. All right.
You start moving, you gotta go, you don't want to go full. It's like, it's a thing. At least at Rent, it was a thing. People were fighting for the toilets and stuff, and it was a thing. The 15-minute poop. Has anyone ever said that out loud?
I've never heard that. No. So, okay, so, you flush the toilet, it's time to go. So, the show happens.
Yeah.
And then you take your bow and you're out and you're back the next day. Yeah.
Take your bow. Most people are sneaking out from the theater because they just want to get out.
Yeah.
And with Rent, there was a lot of residual emotion that was there. And it like, for example, as Angel, I'm the, light, love, and so forth. And then I walk out of the theater and I'm tired and hungry. And then people want to hug me, and I'm like, I don't want to hug anybody, right? So that was, I felt like, sometimes I felt like Mickey Mouse. And although you appreciate it, at the same time, you're a human being and you just want to go do your thing.
Yeah.
Usually, we would actually still hang out together as a cast and go get something to eat.
That's cool.
And then, get home and stay up till about 3, 4 in the morning. Yeah.
I can imagine that whole schedule is set up that way. Yeah.
Exactly. Because you kind of want your like that it's a special quiet time when you get home, and you want to just enjoy that.
Yeah. So how was it? I mean, you played Angel for how many years?
On and off over the course of 7, 8 years. So
how was it stepping off the stage and directing someone in that role? What was that? Was it a big deal for you, or was it did you approach it easily?
It was a relief.
Yeah.
It was a relief because I loved, because there's no prototype that I have for the character. I just, it's more of an instinctual thing. It was like this person, and then it's really less about them playing the character, but helping them reveal those aspects of them that are the character, and that takes just being with them and listening to them and speaking with them. It's not, I don't see it as something that they put on, but something that they reveal that is already there.
I see.
And each person is unique and dynamic in their own ways, and I love that process.
Awesome. All right, well, let's switch gears and go to a different show. Can you tell us what Fly is, and what you were doing with that show?
Fly is a musical based on Peter Pan. It is directed by Jeffrey Seller, who is the producer of Hamilton and was the producer of Rent. And the choreographer is Andy Blankenbuehler, who's the choreographer for Hamilton. And it's a beautiful retelling of Peter Pan with tribal music and drums and kids and bamboo and kids flying and ropes and killer music.
Awesome. Okay. And that played at La Jolla, and then also went on to...
It was first at we first did it at Dallas Theater Center.
Theater, yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Awesome.
Hopefully we'll do it at Broadway at some point.
Awesome. All right, great. So going back to school, we are a campus of, we're non-theater majors. We're a STEM major, a STEM-based school. And our students are here. They just love the art form, but they're taking all sorts of classes that are going to help them out in their lives and their careers. Was there a class that you took that wasn't necessarily performance-based,
Oh yeah.
that you felt like this class was invaluable, or maybe a lesson you learned that's not really performance based that you've held dear and used throughout your career?
Well, I have several answers for that.
Okay.
Aside from being a theater major, I was also an orientation leader. I was a peer advisor. I worked at the student activities office, and I was in a fraternity. And then I was in the executive board of the governing body of all the fraternities.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that, for me, not only expanded my community at school, but how I interacted with people and how I engage now in the business. It is because it is a business. So I wasn't a recluse theater student. I was really like I was out there, and then and really in a really sociable way, social way. That's the first part. The second part is I took a course in scene design that I fell in love with. And then the next semester, I chose to not audition for any of the shows, and I told the scene designer that I wanted to design sets. And everybody was like, "What?" And I was like, and because I would play a lot of the leads in school, I was like, I want to do scene design. I wanted to explore it, and I loved it. It was so nurturing for me.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, even as a director, I can imagine it also helped. The concept of space and interaction with space.
Absolutely, and absolutely, and even just the technical aspects of it all.
Mm-hmm. Well, Natalia is back with a question this time. What was the process like when working on your feet, since it is biographical?
The process was weird because it was not only is it biographical, but it's a living person who's there overseeing and is part of the creative process, and they are very interested in coming across a certain way. So that was and they also didn't have much drama in their life except for she had a big bus accident, but there was no like dirt on Gloria. So it was like, how do you create this dramatic, so what we just you have to get down to the basics. People are going to see a Gloria. People that buy tickets to see On Your Feet are buying tickets to hear Gloria Stefan's music. That's the basic. That is the reason. So they're there for the music. So you want to give them the music that you got to give the audience the music that they want to hear. That means that the book scenes have to be great, but you really want to get from to the next song, to the next song, to the next song. Luckily, we had a great writer who was able to write beautiful moments. So what Jerry Mitchell was so great. He was like, it was like the concert, big musical moments, and then it would be small book scenes that really landed a punch, and then go right back to the music, and then come right back to the book scenes. And we just I think with each, when it's biographical, you have to really understand why are people going to see this person? What is it that they're going to go see? Gotcha. What is it that they want from the experience? Right. Does that answer your question, Natalia?
I hope so. So Natalia, let us know if you want us to go a little further into that. Meanwhile, oh wait, here we go. Oh no, that's Deneen. Okay, let's see. I have two questions. My first one is, how did you know you want to direct and act? What made you decide to do that instead of scene design or any other aspect? So let's start with that question first.
Okay, how did I know that I wanted to direct and act? I always knew that I knew that I wanted to act right out of right when I saw a musical in high school. I was like, I want to do that. And then when we started doing like individual event competitions in high school, I was the one that was always picking the songs and putting the group together. And so I was already directing. I'm a Virgo. I'm bossy, and it's so it was just something that I always naturally did. I always knew that I was going to be a director, but I always had it as, oh, when I'm like 60 years old and have a beard and a pipe is when is when I'll be a director. That's what a director was for me. But yeah, I took that leap.
Okay. Well, the second part of her question is, did anyone ever say not to major in theater? Is it possible to do film or be a writer in the industry, even if you pursue a different career path?
Yeah, people say to not do all sorts of stuff, or to do things, or you know how many people told me not to do my documentary, or to not go to Cuba, or to do that. Like, everyone has an opinion about what you should do or should not be doing, and that there is a way to do it. And what I've really learned for myself is that there is no linear path to anything, and that it's whether you get the result or not is inconsequential. What really matters most is that you're being true to your curiosity, and that you're following it through, even if it takes you down paths that make no sense to other people, but that feel true to you. Well, moving to Europe I moved to Europe right after On Your Feet. I'm like, oh no, what are you doing? How could you be moving to Europe? And you should stay in New York and blah blah blah, and do that thing that you like, that linear path, like and I was like, I'm not doing that. And like I've never been busier on Broadway, and I live in Spain. I've never been busier. Where like I'm like, I have tons of projects, and I have lots of stuff that I'm doing. I don't even live in New York.
That's all.
There's no linear path to anything. I think that, again, it may be hippy dippy, but you have that thing coded in you, and you've got to. I think you just really need to develop how you listen to yourself.
Yeah, follow that curiosity and love, right?
1,000%. For me, that's like key.
Awesome. All right. So, and yeah, it sounds like we did get Natalia's question answered. Yes, I loved it on tour, On Your Feet, and was impressed with the way the energy shifted between songs and scenes. It felt real and intimate.
Awesome. That's what we were going for.
Yay. All right.
Pursuing paths that make no sense to others, but I have been able to connect it to my path. I'm hoping to make a law documentary. So hearing you talk about documentary is really helpful. Thank you. Great, Deneen. That's really great. Absolutely. It's like, it may not make sense to others. Like, I've been working on the HBO film for 7 years. I was like, on year 4, I was that guy, oh, I'm working on my film, I have to have a call, and everybody was just kind of looking at it like, oh yeah, Andy and his film. So today, when the press release was out and it was like HBO has acquired, I was just like, Andy and his film. There's so many times that I should have quit, and just like, there was a whole year we didn't even have, like, that Rent did not give us the rights. Like they were like, well, sorry, we're not going to give. There was a whole year we didn't even have the rights, and I was like, fine, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it a different way, and I'm going to make it more personal, including my family story. And that's why my family story is in there. And that's why HBO wanted it, because it's not just a typical document. It was going to be a making of, and now it's a whole memoir thing. So all the obstructions, can I say? Sometimes I get weird with my Spanish. All the
obstructions, like, yep.
Cornered makes you have to be creative. You have to think, and it makes you think outside, and that leads you somewhere else. Um, and I think that's where a lot of unique ideas come from.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
If you continue, if you push through it, and it's attachment versus commitment. Like you stay committed to what you're doing versus attached to what you think it's supposed to be. You really gotta let go of what you think it's supposed to be, and let it evolve. Let whatever project let it evolve into what it wants to be. Kind of like you have a child, you could tell the child, you could advise a child on everything, but the child has its own choice and its own personality and its own life. And you've got to really allow the project to tell you what it wants to be.
Like that. Yeah. And I love hearing, like, even here at NC State, we hear our students say, yeah, that light wants to be oranger, or it wants to be bluer. That sound, that music wants to be, slower. I love how we approach it that way.
Yeah.
So Rich has got another question for you. You were speaking about, the families, your experience with the your documentary and your family side of that. Rich asks, what lesson skills did your parents and grandparents impart to you that you are most thankful for?
The first thing that comes into my mind was before my dad passed away. He passed away of cancer, and I was taking care of him in his last days. And I remember this day so clearly. He said to me, and this was in Spanish. He was like, "You have a lot of ideas, but very little follow through." And he just said it in a just very passing. And that just really stayed with me. And he was right. Like I was like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. I want to do this and I want to do that. But didn't really follow through with any of those ideas. I was like, what's that? Was it in like, whoa, what is that cartoon? That squirrel.
Oh yeah. Oh, Pets. No, is it Pets? No. Up.
Oh, that's me.
Yes.
Squirrel.
Yes.
Squirrel.
Doug, I think is his name. Yeah.
Exactly that. And so the follow through was something that one comment really led me in the right direction. But I think the biggest thing that they imparted to me was joy and love for what they do. Like in my kitchen, they would be making food, and then they would be playing music and writing music and rehearsing. And my father started his orchestra when he was 50 years old. So
Oh, wow.
there were no rules. Like
Yeah.
they just like they just followed their what my dad was like, yeah, I've never played the congas and I want to play congas, and why not? And they did super well. So I think it's about like really, again, following that curiosity. Like what do you want to experience? And that your curiosity constantly changes.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You don't have to stay, just because you're doing one thing, it doesn't for a long time doesn't mean that you can't allow yourself to evolve. I may stop doing any theater altogether and open a cafe at some point. Who knows? And it's really all just expression.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's great. Well, that leads us into our last question of the night. Same question we ask all of our guests before they leave. Andy, if there was one piece of advice you would give someone wanting to pursue a career such as yours, what would that advice be?
Do it now. Meaning, whatever you're doing now, do it fully, because there is no difference. It's just the scale changes, right? What I'm doing now is the same thing I did in college. It's the same thing that I did in high school. And it's the same thing that it's what I've always done. It's just, is it professional or not? And if it is professional, what's the scale of it? Like how much money or how many seats, or what's the budget? But it's all the same thing. It's you're always doing the same thing. You're working with people and you're creating, you're telling stories. That's it. So wherever you are, whether it's regional theater, whether it's school, whether it's a university, whatever it is, that's what it is. So you want to look at what are you doing now, and how successful are you at at your self-expression and your leadership inside of it, because this is it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Y'all, I hope y'all enjoyed your time as much as I have. Andy, I hope you enjoyed your time as much as I have. Thank you so much. I know it's late. I know you got to get the, get the cat fed.
Do you guys want to meet my cat?
Oh yeah, of course.
Face over here.
We're gonna take a look at Andy's cat. What's the name?
His name is Buster. He's asleep. Look at him.
Oh God, he's like, what are you doing?
And now he wants to go to bed.
Awesome. All right. Well, Andy, Buster, thank you so much. Calling all the way in from Spain. Andy, have a great night.
You too. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Josh.